Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second edition of SEC Live here. I am your host, Matthew Miller. Joining me, as always, Tyler, right there. You can follow him on X at TylerVoice_722. And you can follow me on X at MatthewMS97. I really appreciate you guys being here. Again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We are trying to grow the channel here. I really appreciate it. Also, in the description of every video, guys, there's an Amazon link that puts a little bit of change in Mark's pocket. It does not cost you any money, does not change your buying experience. You just have to use the link. So use that link in the description. And Mark has a show every Monday through Friday of the football season, 10 a.m. Eastern time, talking about the previous week's games, the games coming up, whatever you want to talk about. If you want to call in, super chat, he will talk about it with you guys. So please go over there and check that out as well. Also, we are on your favorite audio platforms, wherever that may be, Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you want to check, Amazon. That's the tech. It says Texas, but we have it all at the Voice of College Football. The SEC show will be on there. The Texas show will be on there. The Iowa show will be on there. Whatever you want to listen to, it will be on there. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited for this weekend. It's a little bit better, in my opinion, than last weekend, but football's football. It's been great so far this year. And we're going to jump into our top 5 teams again in the SEC only. Tyler, I will let you start with your number 5 team.
Well, yeah, I haven't changed mine from last week. If you were tuned in last week, it should be Alabama. They had an off week, so I can't really say much about them other than, they played really well in their last performance at Wisconsin, a team that also had a bye week last week. They start Big Ten play. I think they actually play USC this week, so that's a pretty big game for them without their starting quarterback. Van Dyke went down. But I thought Alabama's offensive line played pretty well. Their defensive line, other than that first quarter, was pretty fine. It's a big game this week for Alabama at home. Game day will be there. My Georgia Bulldogs head to Tuscaloosa, and actually Georgia's a 2-point road favorite right now. So, yeah, Alabama stays at number 5 for me.
I have Ole Miss staying at number 5 for me. I just need to see a little bit more. I will say we're going to get into the Kentucky Ole Miss preview, so I have some stats with that now. I got more in depth. We'll have more stats for these teams this week because there's a little bit more data now. And Ole Miss's defense is a lot better, at least numbers-wise, than I thought they would be. They've actually been pretty damn elite so far. Now, have they played anybody? No. The best team they've probably faced so far, not probably, is Wake Forest. We'll see how that turns out, how good of a win that is. They absolutely beat the crap out of them on both sides of the ball. So we'll see, but they just have to prove a little bit more to me when we get into the meat of their schedule, which it is one of the easier schedules in the SEC. And I hate doing that because I know I heard about Texas as well. Like, they're still hard schedules, but when we're talking about SEC schedules, it is one of the easier ones. But we'll see how their defense does pan out the rest of the year. But so far, so good. But until they go up against a bigger team, I'm going to have them at number 5. Who's your number 4 team, Tyler?
For me, it stays at number 4 for UGA, another off week. I was hoping that Georgia's defensive line would start to get some key guys returning, obviously. Michael Williams and Warren Brinson. We saw a little bit from Warren Brinson against Clemson. And we also saw Michael for most of that game against Clemson until that dirty block by Phil Maffa, which is terrible, but it is what it is, which basically has caused him being out. Jordan Hall's another guy, and Xavier McLeod for Georgia. All 4 of those defensive linemen probably are out. Roderick Robinson obviously is out. Tate Ratledge obviously out. So Georgia's injuries are pretty key for this big game. Like I just said, they play Alabama, primetime game, at Bama, a team Georgia hadn't beaten in the regular season since 2007. Again, we'll talk later about the big game. But yeah, that Kentucky game, Georgia got pushed around. Just let's be completely honest here. Got pushed around by a pretty mediocre at best Kentucky team, a team that will more than likely try to run the football before throwing, but still not a good look for UGA heading into. But the good news is they had a bye week. Big game against Alabama. This is probably Georgia's biggest game of the season. So, we'll see what happens on Saturday with that. But I think for right now, I'll keep Georgia just ahead of Alabama.
Yeah, so and now this will be decided. I have Alabama at number 4. I liked what I've seen so far from the offense. I think Jalen Milroe has made strides. I would actually like to see Jamarion Miller get more carries than Justice Haynes. I think he's a better player right now. We'll see if that does happen or not. Obviously, Ryan Williams, 17 years old, everyone knows that, but he's been phenomenal, guys. Like there are very few words to describe how well he's been, because there's a real, if you could say this for real, like he's the best wide receiver in college football, you can make that argument right now. And then the defense, again, I looked into the numbers again today, and the defense is better than I thought. Now, again, the competition isn't great, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. But it's going to be interesting going into the game. Carson Beck versus that secondary, which is very young and untested. If you go back and watch some of the games, there are throws to be made there. They just haven't been able to. They haven't played a quarterback that's been able to expose the secondary. I think Carson Beck is able to do that if he has time to throw, because Alabama is pretty good at getting after the quarterback. So it's going to be interesting there how that plays out during that game. But for now, they are my number 4 team, and they could jump up to number 3. Obviously, they play my number 3 team in UGA, but I'll get to them in a minute. Tyler, who's your number 3 team?
Well, mine stays the same. Most of my lists actually stayed the same from last week. I still have Ole Miss. They've yet to be tested. In fact, all 3 of these teams ahead of UGA and Bama have looked just great for 12 quarters. Now, granted, we're actually 16 for Oklahoma or for Ole Miss, but granted, they didn't play a significant opponent on the road at Wake Forest. Okay. Wake's a team. In fact, Wake's probably one of the worst teams in the ACC, could be fighting for the bottom there. And yeah, Wake Forest, they're more of an offensive team, and they shut them down, gave them just 6 total points. Georgia Southern might have actually be better than Wake Forest, to be honest with you. They gave Boise State a real good run there. They got a decent offense, especially for a group of 5 team. And Ole Miss did exactly what I thought they would and completely shut them down. I like Ole Miss at number 3. And Matt's probably going to, I think he already said he's going to roll with UGA. Now, reason why I don't have Georgia above Ole Miss is simply because Georgia looked terrible against Kentucky. Now, you're going to watch Kentucky struggle, and Ole Miss is going to beat Kentucky. Let's just be real here. But you're going to see the line of scrimmage for Ole Miss be a lot better than what it was for UGA against Kentucky. And I see these excuses every week when it comes to Georgia and Kentucky about, well, Georgia, it's hard for UGA to head to Kentucky, blah, blah, blah. I give Mark Stoops a lot of credit, and his style of football is solid, so, but at the same time, Georgia should not be getting pushed around. That's why I have Ole Miss slightly ahead of Georgia, and they'll be playing anyway this week. I believe that's a noon game at Ole Miss, and I guess Ole Miss's best team that they play up to that point. So we're looking at the comments right now as Jackson Johnson. What's up, SEC Nation? Yeah, we're both big SEC fans. He's a Texas fan. I'm a Georgia fan. We play each other here in a few weeks, which is funny. But, yeah, Texas has looked really, really good. And Arch Manning, I guess we could talk about him a little bit later. He had an okay game against UL Monroe. 2 bad interceptions, but 2 touchdowns. So I guess that cancels that out. But, I guess I can just move forward for my tiers there, as my number 2 team's Tennessee still. Boy, Tennessee has done a lot of damage away from home. You got to give credit where credit is due. Going to Norman, that's a tough place to play. I would definitely say it's top 20 and borderline top 15. Oklahoma fans might get mad about that, but Tennessee is used to those type of atmospheres, and it feels good if I'm a Tennessee fan, it feels really good that you can go on the road and beat Oklahoma. They did it relatively easy, I'm not going to lie. Nico had an okay game, but neither quarterback wowed anybody. In fact, Jackson Arnold played absolutely terrible. We got to give credit to that Tennessee front 7, forcing, 4 total turnovers. I think they had 3 fumbles and an interception, or maybe 2 interceptions. There was a lot of turnovers. That was such a sluggish game. Kind of what I expected, though, honestly. No offense, but I said it was going to be a defensive game. I had Tennessee winning that one 27-10. And, if Josh Heupel goes for it on 4th and 1 when it's 22-9, probably goes down, scores a touchdown, if not adds 3, but about 3 or 4 minutes comes off the clock, then yeah, that it probably would have ended 25-9 or 29-9. But for whatever reason, it was weird that whole situation that he kind of let Oklahoma come back. Not gonna lie, with his play calling. But yeah, they're clearly my number 2 team, and then number 1, I'm leaving it with Texas until maybe Georgia jumps them or Alabama jumps them, because that's a huge win. But Texas has played pretty much perfect for 16 quarters. They have the best win in college football, pretty much statued with that Michigan win on Saturday, that come from behind thriller. Weirdest game I've ever seen in my life. I've never in my life seen a team go down the field running the football with 3 minutes left, 90 yards for the game winner. That's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Shout out to Lincoln Riley. He allowed that to happen. But anyways, Texas is my number 1 team. I went through my final top 5 there, Matt. The floor is yours now.
Okay. Yeah, my laptop went out. Sorry about that, guys. So my number 3 is Georgia. I just need to see more explosive plays from them on offense, and I think they're still trying to find that guy on the offensive side of the ball, because you lose the best tight end in football in Brock Bowers, and you lose another really good wide receiver in Ladd McConkey. And I'm underrating Brock Bowers. Like, we're talking about a generational tight end prospect. So it's hard to replace that. And I still think they're trying to find that guy on offense to create those explosive plays. The offensive line has been absolutely elite. Tyler, do you know when Tate Ratledge is supposed to be back, or is he coming back for Alabama? Do they know yet?
No, he's not playing against Alabama. He's got a couple more weeks.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a big loss. I know it's Georgia, but that's still an all SEC, all American type player. It's really hard to lose a guy like that and then replace him. And then the running back position has been very good with Nate Frazier and those guys in the backfield. Obviously, Trevor Etienne. Defensive side of the ball. The secondary, when we get to that Alabama game, again, been looking up stats. That secondary is elite, guys. The numbers back it up. The NFL mock drafts back it up. The recruiting rankings back it up. They're just elite on that side of the ball, but probably the best secondary in the country. So number 3 for right now, if they do show me the explosiveness on offense, I'll bump them up more. And I think they're going to have to be somewhat explosive to beat Alabama on the road. Number 2, I dropped Texas here because I think Tennessee has played slightly better competition up until this point because of because of NC State and then also Oklahoma combining the two. I think they're slightly more impressive than one Michigan win. The other 3 games Texas should have handled. I will say, though, Texas has covered every game they've won so far. They've covered that Vegas number, which is very impressive no matter who you're playing. But right now I do have Texas. There's some concerns. I got into my preview about Mississippi State, and they're not great right now at running the football. I'd like to see them be better at that. I think they're averaging like 4.9 yards per carry. That's got to be better versus the competition you have faced. And I'm hoping Jaden Blue can stay healthy and that room can create more explosive plays in the running game. I'd also like to see Trey Wisner be more explosive as well when he's getting carries. But other than that, that's really their only weakness as a team. And then Tennessee has just been super impressed with me. And it's not really the offense anymore. It's the defense. Like, I know Oklahoma doesn't have a great offense, but the amount of speed and physicality they played with in that game was really impressive to me. That's not something you really see from a Josh Heupel team on the defensive side of the ball. So that was really impressive to see. And James Pierce still hasn't really done much. Like, he had, I think, half a sack in that game versus Oklahoma, and maybe he's just going to have a down year. But once he gets going, and I think he will, this defense is going to go to a whole nother level. So right now I do have Tennessee at number 1. I mean, this is very fluid, guys. Like I said, the winner of Uga-Bama is going to jump up to me at some point a little bit. And also, how dominant are they if whatever team does win the game? Like, let's say Georgia blows out Alabama or Bama blows out Georgia. They could be my number 1 team going into next week. So it's going to be very interesting how this plays out the rest of the season. I'm going to be straight up honest with you, though. These are really the only 5 teams that you're going to see in here. I think you're just going to see the order jumbled up as we go. I don't see any other team jumping into my top 5. I don't know if that's how that is for you as well, Tyler.
Yeah, about the same. I was about to say that once we finished here. I thought LSU had potential to jump up there, and then they lose week 1. Texas A&M lost week 1. Arkansas, another solid team, but they don't really have the defense. Ironically enough, they held Auburn to 14 and had all those turnovers. We can talk about that later when we preview the game. But, yeah, I think those 3 teams are the only other hopes to maybe upset one of these 5 teams. That is LSU, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. The rest of the SEC, including Missouri, I don't see even competing with these 5 teams. Now, it's going to take a lot for LSU, Arkansas, or Texas A&M to win those set games, because I know LSU does play Alabama and Ole Miss at home. And if you've been watching Brian Kelly, he's going to probably get one of those games, to be honest. That's just how LSU is. They're a streaky team under Brian Kelly, 9 wins every year. That's just what it seems like. But yeah, maybe LSU's the last hope to jump 5, whoever your 5th team is, whoever anyone thinks their 5th team is. But these 5 teams are for sure the 5 best SEC teams that we've seen thus far. And to be honest, I don't even think it's close.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought going into the season, and I know you would agree with the one, I thought Missouri and LSU were the 2 most overrated teams in the SEC. We'll get into where we were right and where we were wrong, and we can talk about that. But again, guys, can you please hit that like button? Please subscribe down below. This is the 2nd edition of SEC Live with Tyler and I, so please hit that like button, share it out, subscribe with your friends, family, wherever you can share it, please do. Also, use the Amazon link in the description. Does not change the process, does not change the price. All it does is put a little bit of change in Mark's pocket, so please use that in the link, or use that link in the description. And then also, Mark has a great show Monday through Friday of the football season. He'll take your calls, comments, questions, concerns, super chats if you have them over there on the Voice of College Football main channel. So please go over there and subscribe as well. So Tyler, I think it's time to, I'd say, brag a little bit. And we'll also throw in 1 or 2 things you were right about, 1 or 2 things you were wrong about so far in the season as a whole.
Well, thus far, I think LSU's kind of been a disappointment for me, at least. I thought that they would be a much better defensive team, and I thought they would look more fluid offensively. Now, LSU's offense is not going to be a problem this year. It's going to be that defense. Now, Harold Perkins is out. That's the biggest loss of the season for the Tigers there. And that loss to Southern Cal is going to haunt LSU for the rest of the season. If they do finish 9-3 and miss out on the playoffs, you're going to circle that game right there in Vegas. But come on, in Vegas, week 1, in a situation they pretty much should have won that game. You kick a field goal out in the first quarter, boom, up 3-0. It changes the whole atmosphere and how that game goes. And Nussmeier missed a wide open touchdown in which LSU had to kick that field goal. And then the South Carolina game, they got outplayed and kind of outmatched in that first half, came back and won that game on a miracle. They're 3-1 now. If I'm a Tigers fan, I'm not feeling good about the UCLA win. Now, the second half, you played really well. But yeah, I was definitely kind of wrong on LSU. I do want to say this, though. How about Arkansas, the Razorbacks? I had them going 7-5. That was kind of my hot take there. And I did say they're either going to beat Tennessee or Texas. Good luck with that. That's a really hot take right now. Arkansas's defense is just pretty bad, and Auburn found a way to make that defense look very, very good. Auburn's another team I was wrong about, though. Geez Louise, I thought this was going to be at least an 8-win team for Auburn. I was kind of disappointed they didn't go in the transfer portal to get a quarterback, though. They kept it with Peyton Thorne. That felt weird to me. He had a pretty bad season last year. But at the least of it, you thought that he would get a little bit better, right? Not worse. So Auburn's kind of another team that I was wrong about, but I did have Tennessee in my top 10. I had Tennessee in the playoffs. So those are two feel goods, Arkansas and Tennessee. The bad ones, LSU and Auburn.
Yeah, so I'll just start out with the bad, get that out of the way. I was completely wrong on Kentucky and Auburn. Those are like my 2 dark horses in the SEC. Not dark horses to make the playoff or anything, but be in that upper middle tier of the SEC. I had Kentucky at 8-4. I had Auburn at 8-4. Completely wrong on both of those. I believed in Hugh Freeze carrying that offense more than I believe the quarterback position. Clearly, that has not worked out. No matter what I think of Hugh Freeze as an offensive mind, I don't know if he has actually, I shouldn't say that. He clearly doesn't have the quarterback to run. Now, a lot of that blame does belong on him because he didn't go out and get anyone in the portal. And I do not know why. I don't know if Auburn boosters were holding back money. They needed to go acquire one. I don't know if he didn't like one, but this portal season had the most quarterbacks available, and he chose Peyton Thorne, Hank Brown, whoever you want in that room over those guys. And think about it, guys. Auburn right now would be better if they had Kyle McCord. Auburn right now would be better if they had Will Howard. And I don't even like Will Howard, but he's better than the guys they have in that room. It's just I don't understand the decision there. And then Kentucky, I was just wrong on Brock Vandergriff. He's definitely, no offense to the guy, he just can't throw. Like, I've watched him enough. He's not a good thrower of the football. He's a really good athlete, but that's not going to win you 8 games in the SEC unless you have like a stacked team around you, and they just don't have that. And I was just completely wrong on both of those teams. Now, where I was right, I said LSU was still going to be bad on defense. They're still bad on defense. That does not get changed in one offseason. You don't go from having in like the 100s or the 120s in basically every category and just get a lot better. Have they gotten better in some categories? Yes, but I have some numbers here to back up what I was saying. They are still 113th in yards per pass on defense. That is terrible still. I think they were like 120th last year, so congratulations. You made a nice 7-spot jump so far, and that number is probably going to get worse because the best quarterback you've played right now is Miller Moss, and I like Miller Moss, but there's better quarterbacks in the SEC than Miller Moss that you're going to play. And also Ethan Garbers actually looked decent versus you, and Ethan Garbers is terrible. You're 65th in points per game on defense. You're 89th in yards per play on defense. You're 92nd in opponent completion percentage on defense. The best thing you do is running. You allow you're 51st in yards per carry on defense. Congratulations. You're average at something on defense. Everything else you're still bad at. You're going to continue to be bad at. You can't just hire multiple guys and then have minor player transition there. Like, it's still most of the same players from last year. There's really no difference there until they get their personnel in. That's when you'll change. And then this one is for all you Oklahoma fans out there, because I had to go back, screenshot some of the comments you left me about basically there's a video that came out, and Parker Thune, who I respect, but people, and I'm going to get on my high horse here for a little bit. So when in the offseason, these companies sell you BS. Even if your team is bad, they're going to sell you the unicorns and butterfly scenario, guys. That's what they do. That's how they make money. They're not going to tell you your team's going to be shitty. And so they lie to you. And basically, your standards go up, up, and up for your team, and they shouldn't. I would ask you as a fan, even as a casual, if you barely watch, you don't look in recruiting or anything, just before the season, go and check out your roster, go and check out some statistics, and then base your opinion, because you'll know more, honestly, than the guys that are pushing the BS on you. And I tried to do that with Oklahoma fans. If Oklahoma had a more talented roster than Texas, I would admit it, because guess what? In the past, they have. They've also dominated us in the rivalry. I will say that here. But you're not going to tell me this year you were more talented. There's no metric you can look at. If you look at blue chip ratio, when you looked at transfers coming in, because they liked the one stat they did have is before transfers. Well, guess what? Then your whole offensive line wouldn't exist. And it basically doesn't exist now, by the way. It's freaking terrible. But also, if you include blue chip ratio with transfers, we're more talented. Team talent composite, we're more talented. Super blue chips, which is upper 4-star and 5-star, we have double the amount of players on our team that Oklahoma does in that category. So here's some of the things I got for saying that Texas is the more talented team than Oklahoma. Dalton Moore, this guy has no clue. We'll see you at Red River, you little fruit. I will say the last part of that, pretty damn funny. I laughed at some of these. Crane says, LOL, all you do this every year. OU owns Texas. He's right about that part. Arnold is definitely the better QB than Quinn Ewers. That is some of the stuff I got. Yeah, it's just bad. Texas lost way too much last year. This last year was their year. They will not be as good as OU will be, significantly better with BV's third year. Yeah, looking good. OU does have a better roster, bro. Stop it. You're basing your ranking off of Jackson Arnold based on one bowl game. That was his first ever start. Well, honestly, that was his peak because he hasn't gotten any better from that. Jackson Arnold is definitely better than Quinn Ewers. You know how many of those comments I got that Jackson Arnold is better than Quinn Ewers?
That's crazy to me.
I know, based off literally nothing. You couldn't even do recruiting rankings and say that. This will be the last one. This guy has absolutely no clue what he's talking about. Typical Texas fan that doesn't do his research. When I did a whole 15-minute video of research I did. OU's roster, top to bottom, is way better than Texas. Do your research, bud. OU has better depth also. This guy is a joke. Actually, no, you didn't do your research, and that's why I made a 15-minute video of breaking down my research and telling you why Texas has a better roster. So please, before you comment next time, guys, come with facts. Don't come with emotions. Don't come with someone who is a snake oil salesman and sells you a bunch of BS. So that is where I was right this year. Kentucky and Auburn is where I was wrong. There, I got it off my chest because I've been having to deal with this the whole offseason of Oklahoma fans telling me Oklahoma's going to be better in Texas. And there's literally nothing that was going to prove that to me until you did it on the field. And guess what? You're not going to do it on the field. So,
yeah, good luck, Oklahoma fans. There was I think that's the same Oklahoma fan. Almost messed that up. But Oklahoma fan that was saying do your research. If you go back to the Tennessee video, I've seen a couple of them saying about Dylan Gabriel. I'm like, you would kill to have him right now. I mean, let's just be honest here. You could easily be 4-0 with Dylan Gabriel. I'm going to be honest, especially with Tennessee's just offensively not being as good as maybe some thought. Now, I do want to say this. I predicted 27-10. I was almost right about that if Josh Heupel goes for it on that 4th and 1 when you're up 22-9, but I digress with that. That still irks me that he went for that he kicked the field goal. Anyway, but yeah, Oklahoma, I don't know what's up with their fans. They thought that they're going to come in the SEC and just not really dominate, but instantly compete with teams like Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, towards that upper echelon, which I just didn't see happening year one. So,
yeah, and I predicted them, like I gave them literally the best case scenario for my season predictions. I said I predicted them 8-4, and I said that's your best case scenario, maybe 9-3, but I thought I was fair with that. I still think they can go 8-4. Well, this week will determine a lot for me how that works out, and we'll talk about that game. But it was just got to be. I understand loving your team and everything. I love Texas, but I'm going to be real about Texas. When Texas was bad, I told people they suck, and why they suck. When they're good, I'm going to tell you why they're good. I mean, there was nothing to me that was pointing to Oklahoma of having this great year. They have a great wide receiver room when it was healthy, but Jackson Arnold proved nothing. Their offensive line has been terrible. And when it came in, it was 5 new guys playing together. Even if they were all healthy, it was going to take a long time for them to gel. I always said their defense is going to be pretty good, and it's been pretty good. So I don't know what I just said that was so hateful, but they were on my ass for sure. But we'll talk about Hugh Freeze and the Auburn situation, quarterback situation now. So we kind of talked about that earlier, or I did, about why didn't they go after a quarterback. I want to get your opinion on the whole situation, Tyler.
Well, yeah, I think you kind of hit it on the mark there. Maybe their boosters were not, going with a QB this year, trying to build that up, or maybe Hugh Freeze himself was like, screw it, year 2, we're just going to get some young guys and recruit extremely well, and we're going to go all in year 3. That's what I'm kind of getting now after this season has, taken place. You're seeing a lot of these younger players start to get more playing time for Auburn, especially defensively as well. But Cam Coleman, an elite wide receiver, he has so much talent for Auburn. But a lot of these younger players starting to step up. He went with Hank Brown, and that whole situation was just terrible. Hank Brown looked like he'd never seen a football before against Arkansas. Subs back in Peyton Thorne, who that California game threw 5 interceptions. I think they've had a total of 11 total turnovers in those 2 losses. That's something I've actually never heard of. So I'm not necessarily sure what is going on with Auburn, but they might have the worst quarterback situation in college football. But the ironic thing is Oklahoma has a serious quarterback situation, and they're going to be playing each other. So, yeah, this is kind of a funny situation, as well as this is a huge game for both these teams. But I don't know who you go with. I guess you have to go with Peyton Thorne because he kind of came back against Arkansas, I guess, still threw an interception, but I believe it was tipped off of Cam Coleman's hands, I think. But Hank Brown, like I said, he looked absolutely terrible. Both quarterbacks haven't looked good. I think you got to go with the veteran when you play at home against Oklahoma. And this whole situation for Auburn, Hugh Freeze, he's kind of like a quarterback guru, kind of with, hypotheticals there. If you look at all of his quarterbacks, though, they have like some type of issue, which is interesting to say the least. Got Chad Kelly, Bo Wallace personally attacking him on Twitter. Now I've heard things about him. Well, I don't know, but he's had some weird situations with quarterbacks. But if you look at all of his good teams, quarterback used to be kind of that strong suit. And Auburn has an borderline elite defense. Give them credit where credit is due. Not a lot of defenses can hold teams under 20 points given short field. How many times? Like the Cal game, Cal had the ball across midfield every time they got the ball because of turnovers and such like that. We'll see. This is a life-saving game for either Oklahoma or Auburn. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But, yeah, this whole situation for Auburn is just pathetic and something I don't think I saw. I didn't think you saw. But with Peyton Thorne last year, he looked pretty bad and probably should have went after a quarterback in the portal, to be real.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I looked over the quarterback situation because I just thought Hugh Freeze would make it a little bit better at least. Because I Peyton Thorne, I believe, in my preseason quarterback rankings at like 12 or 13. So I knew he wasn't good, but I just thought they would do things offensively to help him out. And it doesn't seem to be working, even them trying to do that. But that's the thing, too. Like you just said, their defense has been good. They have good wide receivers. They have good running backs. Literally, if you put Cam Ward on this team, they're probably a 9-win team. And there was so much buzz about that in the offseason about, hey, Cam Ward could be here. Cam Ward could be here. Like the three teams you heard him connected to were Florida State, Miami, and Auburn. And I think it's kind of funny because you can look at it right now. Look at it. Florida State, if they had Cam Ward instead of DJ Uga-Bama, look how much better they'd be. Look how much better Auburn would be with Cam Ward. Like that changed the whole complexion of the season for three different teams, and it changed Miami. Like Miami could legitimately, I don't think they're going to win a national championship. I don't think they're that good, but they could win a playoff game for sure with Cam Ward at quarterback. I think Auburn could have been competing, since they are in a harder conference, to get to the playoffs with Cam Ward. I don't know if they would have made it, but I think they had a chance with him at quarterback. Like I said, you have Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Jarquez Hunter. Is it Rivaldo Fairweather at tight end? That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
he's
Mayweather.
Mayweather. Okay. Yeah. He's good too. So it's like,
no, you're right. Fairweather. God, my bad.
You're good. He has all this talent on offense, and you just decided to look past it and go with Peyton Thorne. And here's an example of like, he peaked in 2022, and I touched on this last week of Kenneth Walker deserves a lot of credit for Peyton Thorne and Mel Tucker getting the money and opportunities they were given, because Peyton Thorne peaked in 2021. He had a 60.3% completion percentage, 27 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 8.3 yards per attempt. In 2022 and 2023, he had 6.9 yards per attempt and 6.6 yards per attempt. So right there you see that, what happened was the defense had to respect Kenneth Walker, and he was able to get better opportunities, better matchups on the outside, and everyone fell for it like he was a good quarterback, and he's turned out not to be a good quarterback. And same thing, obviously, with Mel Tucker. Obviously not a good coach without Kenneth Walker. So it's just amazing to me that I definitely have lost some trust in Hugh Freeze, because if you're supposed to be a quarterback guru, you should know what you're looking at in practice and realize, and hell, you have a whole year of game film to realize this guy's not that good. I can't ride with him for a full another season and he's putting his livelihood on the line for Peyton Thorne. Like, if Peyton Thorne continues what he's going to do and he's the starter, Auburn's going to be really bad this year, like 4-8 bad. And that basically is putting your career in jeopardy of next year. He has to deliver. Like if he doesn't deliver next year, he'll probably be fired. And remember, guys, Auburn went out of the way to hire this guy and kind of got some bad publicity. So there's a real chance he never coaches again if this doesn't work out. So, as a head coach, he'll probably get a job as a coordinator somewhere, but as a head coach. So I just don't understand that personally, riding with someone like this, but hey, more power to you, I guess.
And the crazy thing about Auburn and really with Peyton Thorne, though, is almost every year, except for that 2022 season at Michigan State, but he's had some really good running backs. Obviously, Kenneth Walker, but Jarquez Hunter's very, very good. Alston is okay. The run game is not the issue really at Auburn. It's the odd playmaking decisions by these quarterbacks. Even Hank Brown, okay, he's a freshman, thrown in there against New Mexico, and again, he had a good game. But again, like I said, New Mexico has the worst defense maybe of all time. I'm not trolling. I'm being dead serious. They give up almost the most rushing yards in college football, but and actually they give up the most yards in college football too. But then you play an Arkansas team whose defense is just not good. Let's just be real here. That's not a good defensive team. You're going to see Texas A&M be able to push the ball down the field against them. UAB was able to do it. Oklahoma State, although it came in the second half, and that game was that was the weirdest game I've ever seen in my life. They still were able to score on Arkansas late in that game with weird situations. But it's just 5 turnovers is inexcusable at the quarterback position. And doing it twice at home, crazy to me. And people are saying it's flukish. I would hope that that's a fluke, but doing it 2 times in a row against Power 4 teams is crazy to me. And Auburn has a serious issue, but they got a big game against Oklahoma. That's a ranked team still, and Oklahoma has their fair share at issues at quarterback as well. So.
Yeah, we'll transition over to that subject. So Oklahoma makes a change at quarterback. Obviously, Jackson Arnold in his sophomore year, redshirt freshman year, is benched after a couple starts. Reading those comments, he kind of did peak in that Arizona game. It wasn't even a great game for him in the bowl game, but that was really his best collegiate game, in my opinion, at least from just watching. And they go with Michael Hawkins, who's a freshman. His dad obviously played cornerback there at Oklahoma, so he's a legacy guy. And I think that does play a little bit of part into it, not of why he got named the starter, but you could tell in that game he was not scared when he got placed in for Jackson Arnold. Like, he was ready to go. I mean, one of the plays he made was they weren't going to win that game, and he's diving for the end zone, getting blasted at the goal line. Like, Jackson Arnold wasn't going to do that. And this is the thing, too, like, people need to stop saying, oh, we got the Elite 11 quarterback winner. He's going to be a good quarterback. Just because you can throw it around in shorts and 7-on-7 doesn't mean you know how to play quarterback. It looks good. It's cool and everything. But to play quarterback, it's between the ears. And right now, Jackson Arnold does not know what he's doing. Like, you can see that he's throwing the ball late. He's throwing it high. He's looking at certain things and not realizing what he's seeing. And I think it was the correct decision for Brent Venables to bench Jackson Arnold. Now, there's so many different ramifications for this. I mean, like people have been saying on Twitter, and I've read it, you're benching a 5-star quarterback after telling him he'd basically be the starter, and that can hurt you recruiting-wise going forth about, that's going to be a negative recruiting pitch other teams use. Look how he easily gave up on this guy, da-da-da-da-da. And I think it's kind of funny, like they chose to get rid of Dylan Gabriel and choose Jackson Arnold because he was going to transfer. But guess what? Now is going to happen. Jackson Arnold's going to transfer anyways. I do think there is some truth of. I think it would have taken a little bit more convincing to keep Dylan Gabriel there than thought of, because Jeff Lebby left, and obviously they have a good relationship and a long-standing relationship at UCF as well. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. I mean, this could blow up right away. Like if Michael Hawkins plays bad versus Auburn, this is going to get a whole lot worse for Brent Venables. And honestly, he may have already sealed his fate, because if he doesn't play well, you basically kicked out a top 7 quarterback in the sport this year in Dylan Gabriel for a guy that was unproven, and now another guy that's unproven. And if he doesn't work out, there's a real chance, again, you could lose your job at Oklahoma because of this. You have done great things for the defense. The defense is definitely a lot better than it has been. It's like Bob Stoops era good on defense, but the offense has just completely gone away. It's not good at all. So we'll see how they fix it. I don't know if there's much you can do with all the injuries. Obviously, the offensive line isn't that good. You're missing most of your wide receivers now. I think Nick Anderson's probably going to be out pretty damn long, because you saw they converted a cornerback to wide receiver. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen. What's your opinion on this one?
Yeah, I thought it's an interesting decision to make, but I think it was the right decision after that 3rd turnover. Boy, did Arnold, his stigma and the way he acted, it utterly pissed me off. And if I'm an Oklahoma fan, after that turnover, I'd be pretty upset. He kind of threw a temper tantrum, to be honest with you. His QBR is terrible. It's like 33.8 or something like that. I know his QBR was in the single digits against Tennessee. Obviously, he played pretty bad if we're looking to pick on something else when it comes to quarterback, it is that offensive line. It's terrible. I mean, their offensive line is horrible. Now I get it. Tennessee has a pretty good defensive line, but still, it wasn't even good against Tulane or Houston. And Houston just got blown out by Cincinnati, 34-0. Tulane gave up 30-something points to Louisiana. All right, so let's just be real here. Tulane's not a good defensive team, and Houston's just terrible all the way around. But yeah, Jackson Arnold has not looked good all season long. You made a great point. You throw away a quarterback that has 16,000 yards passing in his career. Oklahoma fans, literally in the last video, you can go down in the comments and look through them, and they're saying, oh, well, he's been in college for 7 years. Well, no, he hasn't actually. He's played I think he's actually played 4 full seasons. Mind you, he was the backup to Mackenzie Milton, by the way. And then he had that 1 year in which he got injured. So pretty much 4 full seasons at quarterback. So now at 16,000 yards, you would do anything for him right now. Now with Hawkins, I thought he won the team over. I kind of agree with that towards that end of the game, and in a situation where I guess you weren't really in it, but you kind of were. You're down 16. There's 3 minutes left, and he's doing everything in his power to lead a comeback. And I thought he played a lot better. He led the team in rushing yards too, which is that's a point and laugh at the offensive line. But Oklahoma's offensive line makes it a lot harder, and Jackson Arnold just wasn't making good decisions either. If you put any type of pressure on Jackson Arnold, he folds instantly, quick, fast, and in a hurry. And that's what Tennessee was able to do. And now, guess what? You get to play another top 20 defensive team on the road instead of at home in a situation in which both teams really need it. But Auburn, they're going to do everything in their power to beat you, as well as you're the newcomer. You're the loudmouth, you newcomer too, to be honest. Oklahoma fans kind of took over Twitter, to be honest, for a little bit. Texas, I always give you Texas fans a lot for that because Texas is pretty much the Twitter king. But Oklahoma, they were pretty loud this offseason too, saying they would compete with the upper echelon teams in the SEC. And you didn't really compete with Tennessee, if we're being honest here. So, yeah, you lost by 10, but you got pushed around. I'm worried about this offensive line, and then the quarterback decision. In my opinion, I thought they did the right thing to go with Michael Hawkins.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how it plays out short term and long term. I mean, this is going to be a decision it sets off a lot of things recruiting wise, a lot of things with Jackson Arnold where he could possibly go. Hell, maybe Jackson Arnold transfers to Auburn next year, so that will solve that one. Yeah. So Noah Long says, I'm here. Yeah, you missed us. I have been trashing LSU on defense because I was right. Noah, remember you came in here and said last week they've gotten better on defense. No, they have not. We read off those stats. You can go back and watch. I got to support Tyler in the Texas, man. I appreciate that, Tony Montana.
Tony. That's Tony.
Hey, he admits it now. Good. We suck. Yeah. it took you long enough, but you finally come to that conclusion. I don't think you suck. I think you're still like a 9-3 team, but their defense isn't that good.
Yeah.
SG1, you missed out. I was the one trashing LSU. Tyler wasn't trashing LSU.
No, I mean, I said they weren't as good as I thought they'd be, which, to be fair, I made a hot take and had LSU in Atlanta, so I deserve it.
9-3 sucks for our standards. I bet if you averaged it out over the last 15 years, I bet LSU's probably 9-3.
Well, it's because it's year 3 with Brian Kelly, and if you've seen the trends for Brian Kelly, at Cincinnati, his 3rd year, he went 12-0, lost to Tim Tebow by 100 points, but come on, we all expected that. Notre Dame, he went 12-0, made it to the national title, got absolutely humiliated by Alabama. But again, we all expected that. It should have been my Georgia Bulldogs, but I digress, Mark Richt. But year 3 was supposed to be the big year for Brian Kelly. So yeah, that's what he means by that.
Yeah, I know. Everyone kept saying that, but I'm trying to, like, you brought up the 2 teams. I would love to know and go back if they had like pretty much the same personnel throughout, especially coaching staff wise. Like, you had a lot of turnover on your offensive side of the ball with 3 really good players. Like, they were basically your whole offense, especially Jaden Daniels. You see what he's doing in the NFL. And then you also had turnover on the coaching staff. Like, it's going to take time now. You're basically restarting is what you're doing. So that's why I didn't think they would be that good this year. And honestly, next year is going to be pretty grim too, because you're going to lose Kyron Lacey. You're going to lose all that offensive line. You're going to lose Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, they might be worse next year than they are this year. We'll have to see though.
Which is why I thought this would kind of be an all-out year. But it's LSU. They got talent everywhere. They recruit really well. They always have really good couple wide receivers though. I wouldn't be really concerned about the wide receiver. The offensive line, yes.
Yeah, Noah's right. Next year's a portal team, but you see with Florida State, you see the highs of the portal and the lows of the portal. You're basically flipping a coin when you just completely say we're a portal team. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, and LSU has a lot of talent, though. I wouldn't necessarily say you should go into the portal and get 20 different players. I mean, you'll fill some positions probably, but
yeah, it'll be interesting if they really need to keep Bryce Underwood. If they don't keep him,
oh yeah.
Might get bad. But let's jump into these games. We're going to start out, since we talked about Oklahoma and Auburn. Oklahoma and Auburn on the plains down there at Jordan-Hare. Oklahoma is actually favored in this game by 1.5 points. The over-under here is 45.5. Oklahoma comes in at 3-1, Auburn at 2-2. I'm going to give you some stats here, Tyler, and then we will talk about who we think will win. So Oklahoma on offense is 54th in the country in points per game, yards per play. They're 100. This is so sad. 116th in yards per play on offense. Third down percentage, they are 113th in the country on third down percentage. Passing game has been abysmal. 5.5 yards per pass, 116th in the country. And this is where we talk about the offensive line. Sack percentage. So the sack percentage they've given up is 8.7% of dropbacks turn into a sack. That is 112th in the country. But then this is the positive side. On defense, 14.8 points per game. That's 19th in the country. Yards per play, they're 18th in the country there. Third down percentage, they're 27th in the country. And then they're actually in yards per carry rushing against them. They only give up 2.4 yards per carry, which is 4th in the country, which is phenomenal. And then in the pass, they're pretty good as well. They're worse. They're more on the average side. They're 62nd in the country with 7.1 against them. But again, sack percentage, they get after the quarterback. 11.57% of dropbacks result in sacks, which is 5th in the country. It's a very high percentage. Now let's jump over to Auburn. Auburn is averaging 24.3 points per game, which is not very good, especially for a Hugh Freeze offense. 76 in the country. Their rushing is 5.6 yards per carry, which is 20th in the country. Their offensive line gives up a sack rate of 5.38%, which is 61st in the country, so basically average on that side. Defense is 46th in the country at 21.3 points per game given up, and they are 58th in the country on yards per carry given up, and 38th in the country on yards per pass given up at 6.3. They also do not get after the quarterback at all. 4.42% sack percentage. That is 89th in the country. So I would say it's an average defense, not a great defense, but it's kind of an interesting matchup here because obviously Oklahoma's defense is facing a really bad offense. And then Oklahoma runs the ball pretty well, doesn't run the ball very well on offense. And that's kind of Auburn's weakness. So I honestly, this is kind of they kind of match up very well. They're kind of at the same point, honestly, in the season. What say you about this game?
Yeah, two evenly matched teams with quarterback problems and defenses that pretty much have saved them and got them to this point, if we're being honest here. I will give Auburn's defense a little bit of a pass because how many of those turnovers had their defense in plus side territory? It's like almost all of them. And against Cal had the ball about, I think, 5 or 6, maybe 7 times. I'm not trolling. Across midfield to start it off, and Cal just couldn't do anything offensively. But this is a huge game for both teams. This is a winner, and your season's probably saved, and a loser, and it's going to be a rough season for both these teams. I was going back and forth. This is a pick'em game. It's home game for Auburn. Yeah. I've yet to see Oklahoma, how they could adjust on the road. So this is Oklahoma's first big game as an SEC team. Now, obviously, they play Tennessee. That's a huge game. But on the road against Auburn, this is one of the toughest places in college football to play. A lot of people think it's overrated. You just haven't played at Auburn, trust. And Jordan-Hare is a weird place to play. In Auburn's 2 losses this year, weird things happened. Let's just be real here. 6 turnovers against Cal, and I think 6 against Arkansas. When has that ever happened? I've never heard of that in my life, where a team has done this multiple times, and they barely lost both games because of their defense. And then you have Oklahoma on the other hand. Their offense is a lot of question marks on that offensive line. Not really a good offense at all. Running back position, you got Sawchuk. Okay, cool. It looks like they're, what was it, Tatum? Barnes.
Yeah, Javonte
Barnes.
Barnes is probably their best running back.
Yeah, he's probably their best one. I thought Sawchuk was very overrated. I didn't really see him being that well in the SEC, not going to lie. I think it's going to be a dogfight, a very low-scoring game. Both offenses, this is going to be a field position type of game. Both offenses struggling. Maybe both don't even get 250 yards. Both have a lot of quarterback issues. I don't trust either quarterback in this game. So if it comes down to a last-minute drive, and let's say Auburn or Oklahoma needs a touchdown or field goal, I would benefit the defense. I think Auburn is going to win this game somehow. I think it's going to be a very low-scoring, disgusting line of scrimmage type of deal. And because Auburn's at home and weird things happen at Jordan-Hare, these two teams are incredibly almost even at every side of the every position, really. Both have pretty solid wide receivers. I know that you were kind of bragging on them, but they're still very talented there. Offensive line is hit or miss. Auburn does have the slightly better offensive line, and Auburn to me has the better running back, and I think that's going to be the key. Jarquez Hunter, he's going to be the key for Auburn in this game. I like the Tigers to win at home in a disgusting 16-13 game in Jordan-Hare.
So you would take the under there and take Auburn
under
points. Yeah. I'm definitely going to take the under as well, but I'm going to take Oklahoma. I think Auburn obviously wants to run the football, and Oklahoma, like I said, they're number 4 in the country in yards per carry. They're phenomenal at stopping the run. The weakness is the secondary, and the problem is Auburn does not have the quarterback to exploit that secondary. So I think that's a key for me. And then also, we talk about the Oklahoma offensive line not being very good. Well, this defensive line for Auburn hasn't been great. Like I said, 89th in sack percentage. So that's really bad. They're only generating a sack every 4.42% of snaps. So I just think Oklahoma is able to do enough offensively to fend off Auburn in this game. This is a coin flip. Obviously, Vegas has it as +1.5 Auburn. I'm going to take Oklahoma -1.5 here. I don't love it, but I'm going to bite my tongue and do it. And I'm going to say 23-20 Oklahoma. So we're both on the under, just on opposite sides of the coin there. I take Oklahoma 23-20. You take Auburn. What did you say? What was your score again?
I went 16-13. This is a huge game, though. This is probably both teams' biggest game of the year up to this point because of how both their seasons have gone. This is going to be a tough one. I really didn't know who to go with, but I'm going to go with Auburn because I do trust Hugh Freeze. I think he's a slightly better coach than Brent Venables as a head coach. And he's at home. I got to trust the Tigers here. And shout out Andrew. He said he would give us a $50 super chat if I'm right, if Auburn does win outright. So got to bank upon that too.
Yeah. Let's see. Yo, Arch, are you from Austin? I'm guessing you're asking me. No, I'm actually from Ohio. So very far from Austin. I'm taking OU very close. Yeah, I think it's a close game no matter what.
Good game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. It'll be interesting. I know obviously not two great teams playing, but I think it'll end up being a pretty good game. It's Mississippi State and Florida wasn't as entertaining as I thought it'd be. I was right on the over there, wrong on the team. I kind of said it would be a sloppy game with a lot of points. That's kind of what it turned out to be. But that does it for that game. Let's talk about Kentucky versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss is favored by 17.5 points versus Kentucky. Kentucky obviously 2-2. Ole Miss is 4-0. Kentucky's 2 losses. South Carolina and UGA back-to-back weeks. The offense for Kentucky, not very good. 86 in the country in points per game. Yards per play is 91st in the country. And Tyler, you were right when you said it. They love to run the ball. They run the ball 61.42% of the time, which is very high. They only average 4.3 yards per carry, though, which is 68th in the country. And then when they pass the ball, they only average 6.8 yards per pass, which is 75th in the country. So just a below average offense in almost every aspect. Defense, they are very good, though. 12.5 points per game allowed. That is 11th in the country. Yards per play is 4.5, which is 27th in the country. They only allow 2.7 yards per rush, 13th in the country. But this is the weakness, the secondary. Yards per pass is 7.4. That is 74th in the country. Their sack percentage is quite good, though, 9.41%, which is 21st in the country. So they're actually pretty good at getting after the quarterback and creating pressure. The secondary just isn't able to hold up either way. On offense for Ole Miss and defense, they're honestly great on both sides of the ball right now. 48 points per game. That is 6th in the country. 8.5 yards per play, which is 3rd in the country. 6.1 yards per carry, which is 9th in the country. 11.9 yards per pass, which is 4th in the country. On defense, they're 3rd in points per game. They're 5th in yards per play. They're 1st, actually, in yards per carry. They're the best rushing defense. Passing, they are 28th in the country in yards per pass, and they're average at getting after the quarterback, 7.26% sack percentage, which is 43rd in the country. To me, this is an easy game. I'm taking Ole Miss big here. What did I just say? Ole Miss was the best run defense in the country. They're facing a team that runs the ball 62% of the time. Kentucky wants to run the ball. I mean, this is going to be a blowout, in my opinion. I don't think this game's going to be close. I'm taking Ole Miss here 41-10. So I would take the under here because it is 53. That gets you to 51. But I'm taking Ole Miss here. I don't think Kentucky has enough at all to threaten through the air. Do they have some weapons on the outside? Absolutely. I just don't think Brock Vandergrift can test this secondary, which is the weakness. But 1.2 yards per carry, number 1 in the country for Ole Miss. They're going to be able to stop those guys up front. I honestly just contain Brock Vandergrift in the pocket. That's going to be the number 1 key for me to keep him from running around and making plays. So I'm going to take Ole Miss big here, 41-10, and I'm also going to take the under in this game.
Yeah, and I like that pick. This game is it's kind of a weird game. It's a noon game. I believe these two teams actually did play. Well, it may have been last year or may have been 2 years ago. In which Kentucky was a top 10 team. It was a home game for Kentucky, and Kentucky just choked away that game. It was a very close game. But this is a different Ole Miss team. This Ole Miss team might be the best Ole Miss team of all time. I'm not kidding here. I'm being dead serious. Walter Nolan was a huge get for Ole Miss. He was kind of that key piece that they were missing on that defensive line. Oh, by the way, he's probably the most talented, and I get crap for this because of Michigan fans and obviously Mason Graham. Did you see that game he had against USC, mind you? But Walter Nolan's the most talented defensive tackle in college football. He reminds me of Jalen Carter. Probably not as fast as Jalen Carter, but still very, very good. He's definitely, in my opinion, I think he's the most talented. And then obviously Jared Ivey's right there for you. This defensive line is pretty much going to shut down the run. I think Kentucky's defense is going to get some stops here. Jackson Dart has had a breeze these first 4 weeks. In fact, he might be the Heisman. If the Heisman ended today, he would probably be number 2 behind Cam Ward. But Bentley and Parrish have been really good additions. Losing Judkins, Parrish has stepped up, and same with Bentley. It doesn't really matter who they put at running back because their offensive line, which has, I believe, 3 or 4 transfers there, has just been very, very good. And Trey Harris, my goodness, why is no one talking about Trey Harris? Almost 700 yards in the first month of the season there. He's pretty much unguardable for Ole Miss. And obviously Wells Jr., I believe he was from South Carolina. So, yeah, that's a pretty big addition. This is a team that did fill a lot of holes in the secondary with Moore and Hamilton. And obviously John Saunders Jr. has been relatively good thus far. I think this is a slightly closer. You said 41-10. I think it's going to be slightly closer because I am trusting Kentucky's defense in their front seven. and Mark Stoops to sit on the ball as long as he can. I think they'll actually slightly be able to run the football. Probably not as well as what they did against Georgia. Again, that was such a weird game. But I think Kentucky slightly competes, and this is a 30-14 type deal or 30-13. I'm back and forth on the score there, but I think this is a lower scoring game, and Kentucky's able to compete, but Ole Miss will get it done late into the fourth quarter. Don't be surprised if Ole Miss does start the game out pretty flat. They've yet to start out bad. Like I said, they played 16 quarters pretty much perfectly. So don't be surprised if they do kind of struggle there. But I think Ole Miss wins this one. I don't know if they'll cover. I'm right around that cover. I think of what 17 and a half.
Yeah.
So 30-13 is almost a push, but it would be actually Kentucky covering. So I got 30-13 Ole Miss.
Okay, so you would take the under, and you would take. So we both on the under. We're just on opposite sides again. Yeah, I just think they're decent at getting after the quarterback, but if they don't do that, they got no shot because their secondary is not good. So that's what's going to be the key to me. If Kentucky can get after the quarterback a little bit and bother Jackson Dart, then I agree with you. I think this game is closer, and it's kind of like basically Kentucky just dies a slow death because they get tired throughout the game.
Yeah.
But I'm just expecting Ole Miss to come out and just punch him in the mouth, honestly. I just think this will be the best offense they've played. Like I said, Georgia has had issues with finding explosive plays. Ole Miss is not going to have any issues finding explosive plays. That's what the whole offense is designed around. That's the players that they have. So I'm taking a blowout here with Ole Miss. Trash can team and trash can program. He's a Louisville fan.
Yeah. Yep.
Kentucky doesn't score a touchdown in this game. Fair enough.
I mean, but I do believe Mark Stoops is going to come out and sit on the ball as long as he can. That's what he did against Georgia, and it kind of backfired towards the end of the game, kicking that punting fourth and 6 at midfield, or actually across midfield. So, but that's kind of what I think it's going to take for Kentucky to maybe pull that monster upset. But I think Kentucky will compete in this game. They'll actually surprise you there. They're not that bad. They're on that lower tier of the SEC. Well, you have Mississippi. Well, let's be real here. You have Mississippi State right here, and then the second worst SEC team, which could be Florida, Kentucky,
I think it's Florida.
maybe South Carolina or Vandy as well. But anyways, I do think it's going to be a lower possession game to where Ole Miss gets about maybe 9, 10, 11, and that's not really what Lane Kiffin would want in this situation. But they'll win.
Noah Long says Trey Harris is the top 3 wide receiver in this class. I think. I mean, maybe he's at best 3 because to me it's going to be Luther Bird and Tedoroa McMillan. Those are going to be your 2. I don't know. I guess number 3 is going to be based on what you need exactly, but
a lot of good wide receivers.
Yeah, not as good as last year for sure, but still good.
I feel like every year is pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, but when I was thinking about last year, I'm not going to say I'm biased. What I saw, in my opinion, I thought A.D. Mitchell was the 3rd best wide receiver coming out last year. And then he fell out down to where he did. I think, honestly, right this year, he probably would get drafted as the 3rd best wide receiver. I just think it's a little bit worse class overall. It's not bad. I'm not saying that, but just I thought last year's was like legitimately the best wide receiver class ever. So many good guys.
Yeah, Trey Harris is a beast. I can't believe people aren't talking about him. He's almost at 1,000 yards and it's only been 4 games.
And here it is, my two of my rivals get together this weekend. I'm excited for this game. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I usually like watching this game even when they're not that good. Arkansas is 3-1. A&M is also 3-1. Let's get into Arkansas's offense. They average 30.7 points per game, which is 45th in the country. They're 51st in yards per play. They're number 5 in third down percentage, so they're really good at converting on third down. They're 36th in the country in yards per carry on offense. And they are 61st in passing yards per pass on offense. On defense, like you said, Tyler, they're not great on defense. They're 70th in points per game. They're 70th in yards per play. They're 50th on third down percentage allowed. They allow 3.7 yards per carry, which is 48th in the country. And they have one of the worst defensive lines at getting after the quarterback, only a 2.54% sack rate. That is abysmal. That is 113th in the country out of 134 teams. For A&M on offense, it has not been great so far. 24 points per game even, 80th in the country. Yards per play, they are 73rd in the country. Yards per carry on offense, they are 33rd in the country. I will say this, their offensive line has gotten way better so far this year. Only a 2.56% sack rate. That's 24th in the country. So a much improved offensive line from honestly what A&M's even thought of. Passing on defense, 21.0 points per game. That is 43rd in the country. Yards per play is 59th in the country. Rushing is 66th in the country on yards per carry. Passing is 6.8 yards per pass given up, which is 55th in the country. And in this, it's the opposite. Everyone was talking about their D-line. Their D-line does not really get after the quarterback. 4.95% sack rate. That is 81st in the country. Nick Scourton and those guys I thought would be much better at getting after the quarterback. That has not been the case. What is your opinion on this game, Tyler? A&M is favored by 4 in this game, and the over-under here is set at 52.5.
Yeah, I think that's right on the dot, to be honest. I think it's going to be around 31-28, 31-24, somewhere right there. Arkansas, you got to give Taylon Green a lot of credit. He gets a lot. If you look at their third down percentage, he's getting a lot of them through the ground. It's kind of crazy. He did that all game against Auburn. I think in which he had 5 runs in a row on third down, and it was just crazy. That's just what he's been able to do. He's a good playmaker. The problem is with Taylon Green, he kind of makes the mistakes that might cost you the game there. Now, he got lucky against Auburn, I would say, because Auburn's quarterbacks made way more mistakes. But the Oklahoma State game, yeah, I mean, again, they should be 4-0. Arkansas should be 4-0, top 20 in college football, and looking at a potential, letdown game here. And A&M, you could probably say the same. Your 13-13 game, third down and 8 at your own, I believe, 17, and all you needed was about 4 yards. Connor Wigman hits it out to Le'Veon Moss, and he doesn't pull that ball out. In fact, he tucks it in, being a yard short. And if you pick that up, who knows? Maybe you go down and kick a game-winning field goal, win that game 16-13 against Notre Dame. So both these teams really could be 4-0 here. And with Texas A&M, yes, their offensive line's playing a lot better. They've had some bad injuries there. I think Zun is back, which he's their best tackle there. And then it looks like they're just going to go with Marcel Reed. Now, they had a letdown performance last week against Bowling Green, and give Bowling Green a lot of credit. They should have probably beaten Penn State. They were 2 plays away from beating Penn State, probably 2 or 3 plays away from actually beating Texas A&M too. So give Bowling Green a lot of credit here. I think A&M is going to be able to run the football, and I don't think they'll be able to shut down the run completely because they're not a great rush defense, but they're a decent rush defense, and they know that that's what Arkansas and Bobby Petrino is going to want to do. They're going to try to run Jaquinton Jackson as much as they can and as well as they can. So I like Texas A&M here. It's in Jerry World. I believe this is the last time that it's played in Jerry. This is either the last time or the second to last time that it's played at AT&T Stadium. I like Texas A&M though. I think they'll run the ball just enough, and they just have the better defense. I think it'll be a 31-24 type deal. But give me the Aggies.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick Arkansas again. And go against you. I just think their offense is able to create enough against this defense, which honestly, looking at the numbers, I thought it was going to be better because they have talent on that side of the ball. They're really talented, and everyone was talking up that side of the ball coming into the season. And I think Taylon Green on the ground, and honestly, he can make some plays through the air versus this defense. A&M definitely has a slightly better defense, and I think Arkansas has a slightly better offense. I think these are, because of the number, they're basically 2 pretty damn even teams. It is going to be interesting. I don't know who's going to start at quarterback here for A&M. I know Mike Elko did say going forward it's going to be a game time decision. I personally, after watching both of them, I think I would go with Marcel Reed. First off, he definitely fits Colin Klein's offense way better. We know what Colin Klein wants to do. He wants to run the ball. If you watch Colin Klein play in college, that's basically the offense he wants executed on the field when he's calling plays. And I think Marcel Reed's more than capable of executing that, especially over Connor Wegman. So it's going to be interesting. I'm honestly just putting my faith more in Taylon Green, which I can't even believe I'm saying because I had him ranked very low coming into the season. But he's beaten my expectations. I think Bobby Petrino is obviously helping him out too, because Bobby Petrino's still a very, very good offensive coordinator. And I'm going to take Arkansas in this game 31-27. So I'm going to take Arkansas to cover the 4. I'll take the 4 points because I have them winning game, and then that would go over the 52.5. So say your score again for me, Tyler.
I had 31-24 Aggies, so
Okay.
I guess I'd take the under, but I would never bet that. But
No,
it's going to be close.
You would take the over. That'd be 55.
Oh, I thought it was 57 for some reason.
No,
all right, yeah.
I think, and I could have written it down wrong, but I have 52.5 here. So we would both take the over. We're just on opposite sides again, which seems to be the case with all these games. And I have a feeling we might be on opposite sides of this one because the biggest game of the weekend, the biggest game of the season, honestly, comes to Tuscaloosa this weekend. Everybody and their mother will be there. Alabama is getting 2 points at home. That is a rarity, guys. That does not happen. Let's talk about this numbers wise. Georgia, 23.5 points per game. That is 83rd in the country. Not very good from the Dogs on that in that perspective. Yards per carry, they're 47th in the country. Yards per pass, they're 49th in the country. Their sack percentage, one of the best offensive lines going into the season. They have completely proven that. 1.72% of dropbacks end in a sack. That is 16th in the country. And they're just insanely elite on this side of the ball. Defense, 4th in points per game, 3.6 yards per play, which is 6th. Third down percentage is their worst. Actually, it's 91st third down. So they actually let you convert third downs more than I thought they would have. Yards per carry on the defensive side of the ball, stopping it is 27th. Yards per pass is 8th. Sack percentage is 34th in the country at 8.06%. So they're better versus the pass than they are versus the run, but they're still good versus the run. For Alabama, 49 points per game, 4th in the country. Yards per play, 7.2, 12th in the country. Yards per carry, 14th in the country. Yards per pass, 10th in the country at 10.3. Sack percentage is 8.22, 105th. That is definitely one of their worst units on their whole team is their offensive line can be gotten. But I will say a lot of that was skewed by Wilton Fomby and his absolutely atrocious performance versus USF. I don't think he'll be playing in this game at all or ever again for Alabama. Their defense is 8.7 points per game, which is 6th in the country. 3.3 yards per play, which is 3rd in the country. Third down, they can also be gotten here. They're 67th in the country. Rushing, they are 38th in the country at 3.5 yards per carry. Passing, they are 3.2 yards per pass. That is the absolute best in the country. So I still question the secondary because they haven't had a quarterback who can exploit it yet. But when we get into it, we'll see what I decide on. 6.14% sack rate, which is 55th in the country. So they're honestly not great at getting to the passer. Like I said, Alabama is getting 2 points here. The over-under is 48.5. Tyler, where are you going with this one?
Well, I'm a Georgia fan, and I've had way too many terrible experiences playing Alabama. The first time, now I will say this first time my team played Alabama when I became a fan back in 2007, Georgia did win, but we'll talk about that here in a little second here. Georgia had some injury issues, and these are just crucial. These are critical for this game. In fact, this is probably Georgia's biggest game of the season. If you lose this game, you have to play almost perfect for the remaining schedule for college football. You play Tennessee. In fact, you play all 4 of the top 5 teams that we have in our top 5, and let's be real, in everyone's top 5 in the SEC. You play at Alabama, you play at Texas, and you play Tennessee and Ole Miss back to back at home against Tennessee at Ole Miss. So this is probably Georgia's biggest game. On the alternative for Alabama, this is prove it to you type of moment here. And once again, Georgia's the favorite against Alabama. I hate it, but it is what it is. But that Kentucky game, you can point and laugh for the UGA, for Georgia there in a situation where they got pushed around on the offensive and defensive line. Georgia could barely run the football. In fact, they couldn't run the football. They couldn't do anything in the first half. That was probably Georgia's worst first half I think I've ever seen in my life. They had 60 total yards. There was one season in which we played at LSU, and we had, I think, 80 or 90 yards against Joe Burrow before everyone knows that he was Joe Burrow, in which Georgia lost 36-16, at LSU. That was probably Kirby's worst coached half I think I've ever seen. But Georgia gets that bye week, and if you've been watching Georgia and Kirby Smart, and if you give this guy a lot of time to prepare, look what he's able to do in their past 2 bowl games. I mean, let's just be real here: 63-3 against Florida State, had all that time, but this isn't Florida State. This is Alabama. Got to go on the road here in Tuscaloosa. But here's another deciding factor: Nick Saban's not coaching, thank God, because if Saban was coaching, I would 1,000% take Alabama here. But let's talk about Georgia's injuries. And this is the key right here. Georgia's kind of issue on the defensive side has been their defensive line. Now, Georgia's deep and Georgia's extremely talented. There's no excuse. But some of the second and third string guys, and Jordan Hall doesn't look like he's playing. McLeod doesn't look like he's playing. Warren Brinson. Again, these are guys that I thought would be ready for this game. They're questionable, so I don't think they'll play. And the biggest, Michael Williams. We saw him take that terrible hit from Phil Maffa, very dirty, and it was flagged at least, but just a terrible hit there. And boom, he's out with ankle injury. He's out with an ankle injury. He's listed as doubtful. Obviously, Tate Ratledge is not going to be playing. That's your best offensive tackle, actually best offensive lineman, and Roderick Robinson is not playing. Now, look at who Georgia has played thus far. Georgia has played Clemson, who looks like a legitimate top 12 football team, and Kentucky, who's mediocre. Whereas Alabama's played USF, who just got blown out at home to Miami. And let's just be real here. Alabama played bad for 3 quarters. And they also played at Wisconsin, who's not that good defensively. Georgia has obviously played the better teams. If you think that you're going to see the same Georgia team that you saw against Kentucky, you're just fairly mistaken. Carson Beck's a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe. I'm sorry, Alabama fans. It's just the truth here. Georgia has the better offensive line. Defensive line, I'll give it to you, Alabama. But this is a situation in which Georgia knows that this is their biggest game. You ruined our season last year. You were the reason why Georgia couldn't three-peat. It was you and Nick Saban, but Nick Saban's gone. Kalen DeBoer is a winner, though. I give him credit where credit is due. I was going back and forth on this game, but I think the key to this game is going to be, 1, the rush, and 2, the defensive line for both sides. I'm more confident in Georgia, their ability to run the football, than I am Alabama. Now, here's the thing. If Jalen Milroe is out, if you get Jalen Milroe out in space, he could be gone, to be honest. And that's not really what he did last year. He did just enough to win the game. Georgia did just enough to lose the game. This is an all-out situation for the Dogs. I like Carson Beck to have a bounce-back situation in this game after a terrible game against Kentucky. Let's be real here. I trust Georgia's offensive line, and I trust Georgia's experience, and I do think Georgia's defensive line steps it up just enough to go on the road and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa 27-20. I'm taking the Dogs.
Okay. So you would take the under here barely because it's 48.5, and you would take the Dogs minus 2.5.
Yeah, this should be a defensive game.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because last year, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but Alabama kind of manhandled Georgia on the lines of scrimmage, surprisingly. I was kind of surprised by that, and it's going to come down to that for me this year too. I think it's going to be the Alabama offensive line versus the Georgia defensive line. If Alabama, and they want to run the ball. They run the ball 62.5% of the time. If Jamarion Miller, Justice Haynes, and also Jalen Milroe are able to run the ball effectively and set up that deep play action game, which Jalen Milroe excels at, then I think Georgia could have a long night. On the opposite side of the ball, if Georgia can prevent the rush versus Alabama with that great offensive line and if they don't miss Tate Ratledge like I think they will, and Carson Beck is able to exploit that young secondary, then I think Georgia will have the win. That SEC championship game to me still sticks in my mind. I do think Alabama is going to be able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit better than Georgia in this game. I'm not saying as dominant as they were in that game. I don't think it's going to be like that. but I do think they're going to be able to do enough. I think Jalen Milroe is going to be able to make enough plays with his legs. So you and I are going to disagree again on the winner of this game. I'm going to take the over as well in this game. I'm going to take Alabama to win this game 30-23. I think Jalen Milroe is going to have one of his patented deep shots in this game, like he seems to have in every big game. He usually has one deep ball that he completes. And I think that's going to be the difference here with Alabama winning 30-23. So I would take Alabama +2, and I would also take the over here on the 48.5.
I mean, hey, like I said, I respect that too. I think it's going to be a real good game. This is one of the biggest games in college football. Something I didn't really talk about was Alabama's wide receiving core. You're missing Isaiah Bond. He was very huge in that win against Georgia last year. You're gonna kind of go back with a true freshman in which you could circle back and look how well Georgia does against these true freshmen elite wide receivers. Name the last one that has done anything against us. I can't. So I think Georgia's going to be able to force Alabama to pass. I don't think either team's shutting down the run. I just don't see that happening. But I trust Kirby Smart's defensive philosophy as well as Schumann just enough, force Milroe to throw, and maybe some of these DBs come up clutch here. I think C.J. Allen, though, on that front seven for UGA is going to be huge. Linebacker for Georgia. Very, very talented 5-star recruit there. He's kind of underrated, but not, I guess. And Jalen Walker as well. He's going to have to step it up. He had a big sack against Alabama last year. So we need to get our pass rush together. Tyson Ingram Dawkins as well. You saw him a little bit against the Kentucky game, or Tyron, Ingram Dawkins. He looked like he was unblockable against Kentucky. But yeah, this defense, it's going to come down to defensive line, I think, and which running game is going to be better. And I have to favor the dogs here. And this is a revenge game. Georgia can't lose this game either. There's a lot of things riding for the dogs here more than Alabama. But I would say take the dogs, honestly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But guess what? The Ghost and Nick Saban himself will be there. He'll be watching that game, so he'll still be giving that energy off from his press box up there. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see how Kalen DeBoer attacks this defense schematically if he decides to go more passing with Jalen Milroe, which I will say this, Jalen Milroe has gotten much better since the beginning of last year passing the football. Is he great at passing the football? No, but he's still gotten much better. And then obviously he's just so explosive running the ball, like you said. If he takes off, he misses a tackle, he can take it to the house. And I would look out for Jeremy Bernard. I liked him from Washington. I know he's their fourth guy, but he's still a good wide receiver, and I think he'll make some plays in this game. I kind of agree with you. I think Ryan Williams will probably be overwhelmed for most of this game. He'll make some plays, but this is, in my opinion, the most talented and best secondary in the country for Georgia. And they're going to be able to shut down a guy like that in his first big game start, in my opinion. But if someone like Jeremy Bernard, I think will have some success here. And I think you're going to have to attack also in the passing game with your running backs. Like Jamarion Miller can do it all. He's a very good running back, and they should rely on him heavily in this game, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is like I said, this is one of the biggest games of college football, but this is Georgia's biggest game. There's a lot riding on this. I have to go Kirby Smart here. I know, by the way, we get that bye week. Kalen DeBoer, he was given a perfect situation. Now, a lot of people were talking about, it's actually not because he has to take over for the GOAT. Well, no, just look at this team, extremely talented. Debatably, you could put these two rosters up against any other in college football. So, yeah, but the keys to this game, I think Georgia's going to have to force Alabama to throw the football. And if Jalen Milroe goes out there, throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, that's a tip your hat moment. And, oh, by the way, guess who's first place in Heisman voting? So I'm going to, like I said, we'll give you credit where credit is due. Georgia's going to have to make Alabama earn everything, and I think they will. I trust Kirby Smart and Schumann here.
Yeah, it's going to be a really fun game. I'm excited to watch it. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below as you see that banner ticking down beneath us. This has been the second edition of the SEC Show Live. I really appreciate you guys being here. We'll jump into your comments before we leave. SG1 is joining us. He says he's got Georgia in a close one. Could definitely see that. Most of these games we talked about, other than Kentucky and Ole Miss, are definitely toss-up games. I expect Ole Miss to win that game. I'd be shocked, honestly, if Kentucky won that game. He also said
We
Who
didn't
is?
talk about a Drewster, whatever.
Yeah.
Shout out to a Drewster. Guess what? You won on Saturday. A big win for the Michigan Wolverines. The cheaters prevail. Able to go on. Did I really say? I think I talked about this earlier, but I've never seen this in my life, in which a team can go on a game-winning drive, down 4 points,
Yeah.
and only run the football. I've never seen that in my life in less than 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and really less than 6 minutes. Let's be real here. But Michigan did it. They did the unthinkable. I mean, that's sad on Lincoln Riley. More importantly, but hey, I mean, shout out to a Drewster.
A Drewster is better than you, and you know it, because I guess Jackson said who is a Drewster or a Drewster SB1 Sports.
Oh yeah, but
Les Miles to Tyler Boy. I don't know what he's saying there.
Les Miles. Is he? Oh, I didn't talk about the Alabama Georgia game when Nick Saban. It was basically his first year. The last time Alabama played Georgia at home with a first-year head coach, they end up losing in overtime. So I would love that again, 26-23. But, yeah, we didn't talk about Texas either. They play Mississippi State. It's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah,
but
there's no need to talk about that.
Yeah, the sad thing, though, with Mississippi State, their only bright spot was pretty much Blake Shapen,
yeah.
And now he's hurt.
Yeah, I talked about in the preview, like he was having a good year. He had 8 touchdowns, 1 pick at like 66% complete. He was good. He was definitely their best player. And they also, I guess, lost their, in my opinion, what I've seen, their best running back. Kavon Lee's also gone too. So they're gonna get freaking skull dragged. And
I mean, tell Sark he can hit me up. I'll come play some quarterback after I play for Kent State. Apparently. Yeah,
I think honestly, either of us could go in there and throw for 200 yards. So it's going to be bad.
We don't even need to throw the ball. Hike it and hand it off. We could pull a little Michigan. Another thing, shout out to a Drewster. I know this is Michigan for you, but I said Alec Orji under 9.5 pass attempts on Saturday against Minnesota. I think that might be. It's not a lock, but that might be a pretty good odds there. Minus. Under 9.5 pass attempts. He had 11 against USC. So.
Yeah, he had 12. He was 8 of 12 for 32 yards. 8 of 12 for 32 yards.
Yeah, and every pass but one was at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. But I honestly think it was smart. I said this on the Michigan channel for with those guys. I think this is what they should have done from the beginning of the season. Yeah. Just lean into it, because this team was never going to repeat or anything like that. But I do believe if you lean into it, like at least you have a shot of making the playoff. Do you think you'll win a playoff game? No. But could you be like the 11th seed? Yeah, possibly. But because that defense is still really good, and they're able to keep you in most games. And the only games, in my opinion, left on the schedule like you should lose are the possibility of losing are Illinois, Ohio State, and Oregon. But first, everyone like Minnesota, you could easily just run the ball 60 times and win that game. Minnesota's not any good.
Yeah, they're terrible. Max Brosmer has been kind of he had a letdown game against Iowa, I'd say. But
yeah, I mean, losing to North Carolina, who just got 70 dropped onto them by James.
That's sad itself. That whole game. That was what was his name? Chaswell or whatever, the quarterback. Criswell.
Criswell, yeah.
Criswell. He had some of the worst interceptions I've ever seen in my life. He had 2 back-to-back pick sixes, I believe. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think JMU's quarterback threw for 500 yards. I'm pretty sure
he rushed for 100. Wow.
You could literally put that up as the basketball score. Say James Madison beat North Carolina in basketball 70-50.
Yeah, I saw a funny tweet from Uncle Lou. It was 53-21 at the time, and Uncle Lou said North Carolina shooting 10% at half from 3. That was so fucking funny. I had to die from that.
Yeah, it's bad, but I'm excited for this weekend. Again, guys, this has been the second edition of SEC Live. I mean, I'm trying to think what week it is, but it's 2 weeks from now when Oklahoma plays Texas. That week is absolutely loaded. That's going to be really fun to break down. So that will be our 4th edition. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, guys, hit the like and subscribe button. We're here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time until further notice. Thank you guys for being here. Tyler, give your last thoughts before we exit.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest weekend thus far of college football. I know week 1's obviously, a lot of people show off for week 1, but Bama, Georgia, Auburn, Oklahoma, those are two pretty big games and in kind of different fashions. One is for, the SEC being in the upper epsilon. The other one's fighting for relevancy and to save their season. And by the way, you can never forget Texas A&M, Arkansas. And Big Texas has their first game. I know we didn't talk about it. They have their first game as an SEC team against an SEC opponent in Mississippi State. Probably the best versus the worst there. Texas is a 40-point home favorite. And you know what? Mississippi State, you're my super dog. I'm going to pick you to cover the 40 points. Maybe you lose 54 to 15 or some weird score like that. But yeah, just terrible for Mississippi State. I feel bad for them, but they had to completely revamp that offense and philosophy of the entire team, both sides. So, but this is a big week of college football. I'm a Georgia fan. Trust me, we'll be here. I'll either be laughing or crying or upset or whatever, win or lose against Alabama.
You'll have some time to cool off. And yeah, I think Texas could honestly run out their third string versus Mississippi State and beat them. I mean, Mississippi State's I said this in my 5 takeaways from the SEC video. I think I did Monday. I think they are the worst SEC team since like those old Vanderbilt teams like 4 or 5 years ago.
Like
that were just abysmal. Well, not even then. I think this Mississippi State team is way worse than the Vandy team last year. Like Mississippi State's really, really bad. I mean, losing to Toledo by 24 points at home. And by the way, Toledo's not even going to win the MAC. Bowling Green's going to win the MAC. So that's just abysmal. That was just sad. And now you have to take your best 2 players, in my opinion, or 2 of your 3 best players on offense are out. I mean, Texas could legitimately, if they took this seriously, win this game 70-0.
Probably worse.
Yeah. So it's gonna be bad. I'll watch it and I'll break it down for you guys after the game on the Texas channel. But then we go into our bye week and then we get in Oklahoma, Georgia back-to-back. So that'll be fun.
Yep.
So thank you guys for being here. That's going to do it for tonight. Again, catch us next week at 8 p.m. Eastern time, Tuesday. Thank you guys.